Hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to a beautiful day. We are out at McCormick Forest Park, one of my favorite spots, and we're taking a path down to the creek to show you some of the wonderful ways that this area gets its water.
And I just have to point out, when we posted to this event this morning, it was pouring down rain, and now it is like blue skies. The tops of the trees here have this beautiful sunshine on them. So we just couldn't be luckier. So hopefully you're outside enjoying this great day. But if you're tuning in, we would love to know where you're watching from. So yeah, if you're watching from home, let us know where you're watching.
I just can't believe how lucky we got. Like it's February in the Pacific Northwest, not really a time known for being sunny and dry. So we got a fair amount of rain this morning, which means everything is it smells so good out here. The air is so fresh. It is fantastic.
It's like minty chapstick. It's like really an aromatic wonder inside this mask today.
I just smell ferns and moss and cedar. So we are in a portion of the park that has some old growth trees. So we're going to see some very, very large Douglas Fir and cedar. I think we even saw a redwood here. But let's walk along and talk about some of the things that we see as we go. We kind of are famous for having the evergreen state here in Washington. And it's not just the green conifers that keep their leaves green all year round. We've got these beautiful green salal, which is...
I like that you salal and I salal.
You salal and I salal? I salal. You salal. Okay. Tomato, salal, salal. But this is a really great greenery. A lot of people are familiar with it from the florist industry, actually, where it's used in a lot of bouquets.
They have this, it's like almost leathery, just this really hardy leaf that, stays green all year round. When it's fruiting, there's salal berries, which are...
They're little purple
edible,
berries.
But
not delicious.
Not delicious. I'm sure there's a way to prepare them that's actually good.
I've heard you can make a syrup from it where you kind of boil it down and on
like
pancakes.
Cherry syrup is one of my favorite things. I could see that being, because they're very bitter. But yeah, kind of this
nice waxy leaf, and we're about ready to get the new spring growth. So a lot of these plants have their buds, just waiting for warmer weather. And what I love about salal is the bright new leaves are very, very soft compared to the leathery older leaves, and they're just a bright, like chartreuse green.
I think so here's a dead down and brown one, which I don't feel bad about ripping up, but they're also a fun trail marker. So if you want to gather a couple of these leaves, you can rip some holes in a particular way to make little leaf masks. And so then you can sneakily track your way home.
I love it. Little Hansel Gretel, you're leaving, kind of looks like a skull from this
Kind
vantage.
of
But because we're a park, we only want to do that with the dead down and brown type things. Some other greenery that is very common here in the forest habitat is this sword fern. This is beautiful. And you can tell that it's a fern because it has these spores along the sides. So beautiful.
Yeah, but I guess when they get really fluffy.
Yeah, in the springtime they'll really kind of swell, and you'll have 30,000 on each tiny little frond of the fern, and only a few will survive to become more fern. Also, this is I believe miner's lettuce. A tiny little green plant that stays green all year round. It's really high in vitamin C. Oh yeah, it looks like a different fern. Maybe a deer fern? No, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
slightly different.
Like we've seen licorice ferns. We'll point that out.
We'll point those out.
Like, yeah, when it's little baby, it's a little harder.
A little
to
harder.
tell 'cause it's not as...
And then there's this, which kind of takes on the shape of the fern, but is much smaller. This is a moss. And I'm not, for all that I love moss, I'm terrible at identifying them. I can identify them by their growing style, whether they're kind of creeping,
I do
or
have to
whether they're
say,
upright.
Like, normally we know a lot about the beach. Like
It's
the
true.
forest.
It's not my
for me
forte.
is not, not my forte. So we have a lot to learn, and we do have some good plant books. So
Yes.
as we kind of enjoy this season that doesn't have the nice extreme low tides at reasonable hours, not that we're opposed to going out in the middle of the night, but we'll probably do some fun learning and having fun right along with you as we kind of explore and get curious and start getting better at our moss identification and our fern identification. And
well, and this is just
stuff.
a fun hike to take. This is a well-traveled path here at McCormick Forest Park, and so it's not a place where you're probably likely to get lost, but you can just take in all this beautiful, this is another species of moss that's pretty common growing with conifers. So like it seems to like the acidic soils. And it's one that tends to grow out of the ground instead of on something. So a lot of these mosses are growing on like wood. Kind of cool. I think it just might be a juvenile sword fern.
No, one you know, the one you don't know.
Yeah.
Compare, contrast, are they the same?
Always good to ask questions and be curious. This is one of my favorite plants, especially in the fall when it is fruiting. This is an evergreen huckleberry. I saw some red huckleberry here a moment ago, but it doesn't quite have very many leaves, so it's hard to spot. But the evergreen huckleberry gets these beautiful deep purple berries. They are the perfect sour sweet combination. And you can they're in the blueberry family, so very edible fruits. And then when we get into these dense covered areas, you'll start to see this kind of stringy moss growing on just about everything. So it's everywhere.
It really adds kind of like a magical wonderland, mystical forest vibe.
Yeah, it definitely buffers the sound a bit. We are very close to Highway 16. And in some pockets in the park here, you don't even hear it. Here's some more great mosses. And these ones are showing this is called the sporangium, and this is where the spores for the moss are formed. You can see there's a lot of them. And springtime is a great time for moss to be reproducing because of all the moisture. So moss doesn't have any vascular tissue, which is why it's so short. It can't transport water, so it's got to be low down and close to the ground. And those sporangium are like little catapults. They'll just spring the spores out into the environment.
This is cute.
Oh yeah, check out this moss.
I don't know. Dinosaur tail?
Dinosaur tail moss, yes.
Foxtail? No, not quite as bushy. But it's just so cute.
Yeah, it almost is very fern-like with the shape of it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I love it.
And then these really, almost glassy.
Yeah, they get kind of translucent. And then we should point out that the moss is separate from this. It's very similarly structured to that kind of filamentous moss, but this is lichen. So hopefully if you're like me, you take a lichen to lichen. And there are many, many species, and lichen is this cool symbiotic relationship between algae and fungus, which is just wild, but so fun to see. And you can always tell the difference because the lichen tends to be this kind of seafoam green color. It's never going to be that bright chlorophyll green like the moss is, and vice versa. And it takes many different forms. Here's a dead branch here with some that's like a crustose form, or they call this like foliose, where it looks like leaves. Oh, this is an evergreen or a red huckleberry.
Oh, nice.
Hey. Just hanging out, waiting to leaf out. But here we are. We've reached the canyon where McCormick Creek is flowing. And check out the size of these trees. These are old growth trees. Most of the Gig Harbor area was logged, but this one small stand remains. And
Is that a big leaf maple?
yeah, so this one in the center is a big leaf maple, and be leafing out here very soon. You can see there's no leaves on this. And then to either side are gigantic. Stina, go stand next to that one for scale. We've got gigantic Douglas fir trees as well as lots of cedar trees. So the way to tell the difference from a distance is by looking at the branches. So the Doug fir branches are straight and kind of just pop right out from the trunk. The cedar trees have more J-shaped branches. So they kind of do this swoop move where they come down like a letter J. And Stina's getting in her daily tree hug. This is very good for...
If you haven't gone out and hugged a tree, today is the day.
It's always a good idea to hug a tree. It's very, very good for you. It's good for the tree too, I like to think. Here's another one of my favorite evergreen plants. This is called Oregon Grape. And it looks a bit like holly with the leaves having those little kind of hooks to them. And it can sometimes be quite sharp, but it is a beautiful understory plant that's native here. There's kind of this smaller, shorter version, and then there's a taller version as well. But oh my goodness, look, check it out. There are plants living right on the bark of this giant tree. There is some salal up there, some ferns. That's not too unheard of. But then check it out. We've got this is a hemlock seedling growing right out of the bark. The bark of the Douglas fir is very, very thick and convoluted, and it traps debris, which then forms almost like soil for this little plant to grow. How cool is that? Oh, tell us about this one.
I'm pretty sure it's a rattlesnake plantain, or if it's...
What's it doing on a tree?
Right? It's some sort of plantain, but they're really cute.
I love it. Just over there, you can see all the ferns growing up that big leaf maple. Those are licorice ferns, and they seem to really favor the big leaf maples. Wow.
I think they don't have quite as jagged little edges on them.
And they have a longer kind of a stem before the fronds start. Whereas the sword fern, you know, their fronds are starting way close to the base here.
Here's a clue that is indeed a big leaf maple.
Yeah, there you go.
It's some old leaves.
Got some leaves
little
around.
Ghosts.
Well, let's walk down to the creek. This is the tricky part of the trail, the hardest part. I'm gonna go wide so that I don't fall while I'm on camera. But we'll just head down and show you where all the water is. All right. So here's another really, really big Doug fir. That big, thick bark and straight branches. And goodness, this is a huge, huge tree. And then right next to it, we've got a cedar. And you can see the kind of swoopy branches that go down and then kind of swoop at the end. That's a cedar.
About whatever's happening with this branch that's like, I'm going.
No, there's a branch that did a U-turn. Fantastic. Thanks to everybody who's asking questions or posting in the comments. We love to know where you're watching from. And of course, we appreciate all the ways that you share our content and help support us in that way. I'm going to walk, I think I'm going to take the low, there's a high road and there's a low road. And for once, I'm going to take the low road, mostly because I want to get down to this creek. So this is McCormick Creek. It's not a terribly long creek, but it is quite pretty. And I was expecting there to be a lot more flow based on how much rain we got earlier today. But we can take a look and see a little bit. It's nice that this is a Penn Met Parks property, and they've done a really great job of making sure folks can get down safely with this kind of back and forth walkway there. But it's absolutely gorgeous here. Yeah, this is very popular running trails. I know the local high school will come down and utilize these trails for their cross country and track team, and a lot of other sports teams too. Here's a great cedar. Look at the cedar growing right out of the bank, just swooping out there. And then look at those moss covered branches. And the sunlight up at the top there.
Yeah.
We're down in a canyon. I don't think we'll get much sun here, but it's kind of wild to see that on a February day. Nice, clean, clear water. That's always a good sign. It means we don't have too much erosion happening upstream from here. And part of that is because of all the trees and the roots and things that are holding the banks in place, kind of stifling that erosion, stopping the sediment from traveling. And that's really important. All the water from this creek comes from the area around us. So it's kind of like a big drain pan, and it all just flows down to this little creek.
Yeah, and it's an excellent reminder that whatever you do in like the upland zone, places where communities are, that water's sneaky and can easily pick up pollution and carry it to things like this creek. And so if you can do things like fix your oil leaks or use natural yard care instead of chemical fertilizers, or pick up your dog poop, those are all great ways to help reduce that amount of pollution that the water can pick up and carry in. And then of course, thinking about the plants kind of surrounding this creek, the riparian zone is that kind of key to a happy, healthy body of water, because it can do some of that filtration. Of course, there's, just because there's a great array of plants here doesn't mean we can just pollute, because the plants got our back. Like, no.
No, we got to do our part.
For sure. So, but it is a nice little buffer to our negative human actions.
And these protected spaces that parks provide are a really valuable resource, not just for us and our enjoyment and recreating and taking in all this beauty, but also for protecting the water that we have. So very grateful to have this beautiful Pembet Parks property available.
It is the new, there's like this trending thing, forest bathing.
Oh yes, forest bathing.
Oh, great place to just soak in some green.
Yeah, good for your mental health to get out and get some green.
Can we
Get some green. Speaking of green and red, this is a really, really beautiful species. I think it is a coastal redwood. You can tell by that bright red bark there. It's gorgeous.
Also, yeah,
the needles are
really
flat, which I think is a characteristic of the yew family, but don't quote me on that. Again, it's one of those, we need to do more research, but kind of wild to see this little tree that's, maybe 10 feet tall, and know that this could be the tallest tree in the world, the tallest tree species, which is just great to see them growing and thriving here.
Yeah, so things that for like when we go back to the tree book, kind of looking at how the needles aren't straight across from each other, they kind of go opposite like every other. Also the flat, that little hook on the end, all the little characteristics that will help us
pin down exactly what species. Another tool that I use for identifying different species when I'm at the beach or when I'm in the forest is a smartphone app called iNaturalist. And it's a great way to kind of train your brain. It also harnesses the power of crowdsourcing and other scientists and people who are in the know about plants and animals and fungus and insects and all the things out there.
I'm excited to remember whatever the fancy word is for how these needles
for the opposite.
Yeah, opposite but not directly across. There's a term.
Alternate. I think it's alternate. Anyway, but using that app, that iNaturalist app, you can take a photo with your smartphone and it will upload it. It'll try to use its artificial intelligence to figure out what it is that you're looking at. And then if it can't do that, it will put it out there for just the general public. And so you can use that app if you are good with identifying different things, like Stina and I have done many times with beach creatures that get posted, is...
tuned into the Cocktails and Fishtails this month. We had Dr. Sarah Grape talking about the sunflower star, and iNaturalist is one of those tools you can use to report sightings of sunflower star species, which are critically endangered, unfortunately. So the more we can see them, the better.
And it's iNaturalist with the letter I, like iPhone, but iNaturalist. I think there's another version of the app that's a little more basic called Seek, S-E-E-K. But I like the full iNaturalist version of it. Well, this seems like a great place for us to wrap up our forest walk. We'll do a little bit of forest bathing ourselves just because it's so beautiful and magical out here. Thanks for tuning in with us, and thank you for all the ways that you support our organization. Remember, you can always donate on our website, harborwildwatch.org, to help keep us delivering these fun digital programs throughout 2021. You can share our content across all of our platforms. Go like, go comment, go tell a friend all about the different things that you're learning and the ways that you're being inspired to take care of this incredible habitat. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We will be back with another fun program later this week. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everyone.